Now, more hydration. Hi, I'm Max Ma, and this is my Teaching Block 2 Animation Production Process presentation. In this teaching block, we have to create a 3D character within a 3D scene in order to demonstrate our ability to create a character and scene which could be important to games and other projects. The character we have to make would be a representation of ourselves, and the diorama and the scene would be a scene of our choosing. I chose a bunch of different concepts and ideas, such as Spider-Man, Star Wars, and Taekwondo, with techwear as my idea of a fashion sense. This is what I wear in real life as well. And also I used Hong Kong, which is a more urban style, which would fit into my fashion sense a little bit more as well. After that, I made a plethora of initial designs, all incorporating different elements from the references. At the end, I chose this design as I found it to be the best amalgamation of all the previous sketches and I liked the look the best. Then I approached the hardest part of this project, which was creating a character. I had experience with drawing humans, but creating one in 3D was a lot more difficult. However, after 6 tries of modeling, topologizing, I finally went for one which I really liked, which then moved me on to the stage of creating the masks. Well, masks, I mean as in the clothing. So masks, pants, gloves, jackets, all that. Puzzled me at first was making the mask, which I ended up using box modeling, which I was fairly comfortable with making. Then led me to the pants, which I didn't know how to make it at first, but then I taught myself a technique, which was just to snap a medium resolution mesh onto a piece of topology. And after snapping that, I was just box modeling, and this method allowed me to make the rest of the clothing items very easily, such as the pants and also the jacket. The jacket was made with a similar method in mind, which ended up being pretty easy to make and took me about a day or two after learning the initial technique. After that, the remaining items were just, a belt, which was rather easy, web shooter and gloves, which I mirrored over for the other hand, and finally shoes, which is a bit more complex, but ended up being solved with a snapping method and box modeling, even though it took a little bit longer to get the model to look all the way white. Then came the final part of the modeling of the body, which was the hair. It took a lot more time to make since I had to move the different strands of hair alone and also make them different sized in order to make a hairstyle which resembled something that would look a bit more realistic while stylized and still resembling my own. Finally, I made the final model, which is what you see here. The texturing was rather simple and I didn't think it mattered all too much as my diorama would be quite dark and as long as you see the silhouette and the colors, it would be fine as the lighting would do the rest of the work. Here is a wireframe of the model. Here is the back with a subtle reference to Demon Slayer and Spider-Man and a wireframe view from the back. Here would be the model with the rig and a view of the rig without the model. After all the rigging and modeling, I put it into a pose which ended up being like this. The only challenging part here was the cloak, which the model, even the rig, were not allowed to do something like this. So instead just hard model it into this pose, and I think it all looks very well, and I'm very proud of how it looks because it is exactly how I imagined it to look in the beginning. Then came the diorama, which was relaxing to do while posing somewhat of a challenge, as I had to reference from real life to create a cityscape. The main techniques used in this model, at least the diorama, is box modeling, extrusion of faces, messing around with AI standard surface for emissions and roughness, and finally just using subtle lights. I made the subtle details such as adding cars, tails into the stores, escalators, clothing items, trash cans, and pipes, all to make the city a bit more realistic, and added cars to make it a little bit more lively. Here's a wireframe version of the city. And here's the diorama from the back, which I mainly used to showcase the back of the buildings, and then this, which is the mall itself. And here's the wireframe version of the back view. Here I show off the apartment building made by screwing faces off the floor, and then the box modeling part of the windows, the ceiling lights, the doors, the doorbells, and also the spiderweb prop which I made attached to the character in order for a more Spider-Man feel. Here is the wireframe version. And here is the street view of the diorama, which is to show off the neon lighting and the signs, which I used the text tool to make, and also making it with AI standard surface and emissions. I also made these kind of slow wallpapers as well, and these shops to show off how, well, not too detailed, but still somewhat subtly detailed. Here's the wireframe version. And I also made the cars with similar methods of extruding faces and box modeling. I added the cars to give the city a bit more lifelike, make it seem more lively, which is what I tried to emulate in Hong Kong City since the nightlife there is very much bustling. Here's a wireframe version. Here's a gaming building which was similar concepts made with the apartment building, but only with a text tool added as well for the sign. Here I show off the mall, which was a basic building with some signs and glass instead of something else in order to make it a bit more modern. Here's a wireframe version and also the moon. And finally, I show off the props. Here's a dagger which I added in order to add some story to the diorama, as this dagger is a reference to a rather powerful weapon in anime, and my character is stealing it, swinging away in the city, and trying to take it away and store it in a safe place. I thought adding a bit of a story to the entire diorama would be a bit more fun and a bit more life to my character. Here's the wireframe of it. And the final prop is a gym bag, which although the model is quite simple, I went into substance paint to give it a bit more texture, as the fabric would make it a little bit more realistic, and I think add to the overall likeness of it as well. Here's a wireframe version, and thank you for listening to my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed my diorama.